So this is pretty embarrassing. This is actually a big joke to me personally. If you guys can read, it says the future Overwatch 2 PVE content is scrapped. So we've been waiting for the next 3 missions to be, added to the Overwatch 2 video game to drop, so we can pay the next $15 for those missions, but now automatically they're scrapped. Now, I usually follow Overwatch Cavalry because they come with a lot more of the truth when it comes to any information of Overwatch 2, and it's very funny to me that this is actually a piece of news. So Overwatch 2 PvE content has reportedly been scrapped. Developers were informed that the company does not plan to finish any of the remaining planned PvE content and will instead double down on competitive PvP player versus player gameplay. Source told at Dayton Shrery. Like, it's literally just an absolute waste of time. It's a waste of time for me. It's a waste of time for, like, a lot of players. It's a waste of time for things like, people who actually wanted PvE. And what's funny to me is, like, people is like, oh, I expect a refund for the $20 I spent, and that includes everyone else who bought the campaign missions. We were scammed. In true honesty, I agree with that. It's kind of stupid that the fact that this is a company that is lore heavy with other games, but isn't lore heavy for Overwatch. And it's weird to me how they can't come up with like story missions where they could come up with different types of stories for events such as the Halloween event or archives. It's weird how they can come up with the story for the animations. It's way off for me. Like I try to understand this, but this is just really ridiculous. With this, here's my opinion specifically about this. Yeah, this is this is an excuse. This is a bullshit excuse. This is a lame excuse. This in my opinion is laziness. Where you have multiple areas in Blizzard, not just in Overwatch. You have World of Warcraft, you have StarCraft, you have Hearthstone. They come up with many lore heavy things, but you're telling me you cannot come up with a lore mission or anything of a mission based off of a story mode in Overwatch? You're telling me you could come up with all these animations talking about Reinhardt's story. You could talk about Genji and Hanzo's story. You could talk about, the short with Tracer and Widow. You could talk about the whole entire story with Mei. But you're telling me you can't come up with a PvE mission? You could come up with archives and events for, the Halloween, but you can't come up with PvE missions? Let me say this. I think, in my opinion, that the development area here is being very lazy, and the story writers are being very lazy. If you can tell me that you could come up with those things, but you can't come up with the PvE area, in my opinion, the people who are story writing need to be fired. This is ridiculous. This is, and I say this honestly. It's weird that these stories can pop up and these stories can come up in multiple different areas, but you're telling me you can't come up with at least like a $5 10-minute mission storyline for PvE. You could do that. You could do that with the Halloween, with the Diablo event. You could do that with Junkenstein. You could do that with the archives, with Uprising, Retribution, and freaking and you could come up with Storm Rising, but you can't come up with anything in regards to PvE. That's embarrassing to me. And you know what? I don't know. I really hope that they do change their mind. And I understand this is meant to be a PvP and then there's a PvE aspect. But if you're telling me that games like Battleborn can make both, and even have DLC for the story mode, and both PvP, it's very sad where that company does not make as much money as Blizzard, went downhill when Overwatch 1 came out, and yet this comes out with the ability to have PVE. You already scrapped the idea of building your the characters like with a freaking skill tree, and now you're gonna scrap it all in general. It's embarrassing. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's an excuse. I think, you know, Blizzard just are people that have the abilities to do it, but in my opinion, they just don't want to. That's what I feel. There's no way in hell, like, you guys are lore heavy and you guys are not able to do that. No, you guys, in my opinion, you're absolutely fucking lazy. And, you know, I think people should be fired from this. If you're telling me you can't come up with a story behind this, and then no, you're no, that's ridiculous. That's sad. That's sad. I know people who want to work for this company, love the design of the game, love the design of everything, love the storylines of the characters, and they want to put their own storylines, even freaking goddamn fan fictions, come up with cool storylines, and you're telling me nobody in Blizzard can come up with that for the Overwatch team? That's embarrassing. That's ridiculous. That's really embarrassing for the Overwatch team, and, you know, they should be ashamed of themselves. And as I said, personally, I would be firing people left and right, getting new story writers, because that's not possible. That's not possible for a team like Blizzard. I'm sorry, I can't agree with this in any type of stance.